Alright folks, and here we are. We have officially arrived at the finale of our latest cruise vlog, or Cruise Vlog 2.0 as I'm calling it. So, if you've been living under a rock for the last 3 weeks, Cruise Vlog 2.0 has taken you to 3 separate countries and shown you around the massive Norwegian Breakaway. But all good things must come to an end as we head to one last port before steaming on back to New Orleans. So, in this week's episode, we will be once again taking you to the beautiful country of Mexico for our second time during this trip. A few weeks ago, we showed you a little taste of what the island of Cozumel has in store for you. This time around, we will be porting in the tropical paradise known as Costa Maya. And, even more exciting, we will be taking you along with us for yet another thrilling excursion as we head deep into mainland Mexico in search of some ancient Mayan temples. You won't want to miss it. Also, if you are more into seeing our home for the last 6 days, we'll be taking you back on board the floating city itself and showing you around the boat one last time, including some more dining options. And lastly, we'll be rounding out this video with a small review of our pros and cons of the Breakaway and the Haven. So, if you're a little curious about our experiences or have never cruised before, wait around to see that. And before we get day 6 started, here is a small recap of what's happened so far. So, we were lucky enough to experience quite a few unforgettable moments on this trip so far, like our few days in New Orleans, exploring the French Quarter, grabbing some drinks along Bourbon Street, and even checking out the World War II Museum for a few hours. The next day, we eventually boarded the Breakaway and headed on down the Mississippi River before eventually arriving in Cozumel, Mexico. Cozumel was a fun port that we explored on foot, checked out various vendors, and overall just had a nice relaxing day soaking in the southern sun. In between ports, we found ourselves enjoying the Breakaway's main pool area. We then found ourselves in country number 4 for the channel as we tackled the streets of Roatan. Roatan is an island located off of the coast of Honduras and is infamous for being one of the most dangerous ports in the entire world. And we survived. We just ran out of money. After another night on the sea, the Breakaway pulled into yet another port, and we ventured off of the boat into Belize, where we took a smaller boat into the dense jungle in search of howler monkeys. And what an experience that was. And that finally leads us up to today's journey, our last port and last excursion in Costa Maya, Mexico. So, let's get the day started. Alrighty, well, good morning and welcome back. Day number 6 here on the Norwegian Breakaway. I'm not in my normal spot on top of the boat, back here in the Haven, but I figured I would take you outside and show you what's going on. So this is unfortunately our last port day. We're back here in Mexico. I'm right this time, we are actually in Mexico. I got it wrong yesterday when I said we were in Mexico, we were in Belize. But yeah, let's pop out here. Nice view of the Caribbean and the wonder of the seas. And if we pan over to the left here, you can see some crystal clear blue water, some jungle off in the distance. And yeah, today should be a fun day. We're gonna be jumping into a van, I believe, and heading out to see some Mayan ruins. So yeah, another moody morning here at sea. But yeah, unfortunately, our last day at port before we head back to a balmy 32-degree New Orleans area. So, all right, we will see you off the boat. So at this point of the trip, alarms were pretty much pointless. The clamor of ports outside were loud enough to get me out of bed just about each and every morning. Our butler swung by the room to drop off some coffee and bacon, and I found myself out on the balcony for yet another Caribbean sunrise to find out that we were already in port. I stared out at another ship called the Wonder of the Seas as the sun began to rise over the horizon before heading back in and joining in on our morning ritual at the Haven restaurant for breakfast. After eating, we swung by the concierge and grabbed our tickets for our Mayan Ruin tour before heading off the Breakaway. We continued on down the pier in the morning sun before arriving once again on Mexican soil, this time in Costa Maya. We continued down the long pier, passing a man playing a harp,
plenty of pelicans and tropical fish along the way, and within a few minutes, we were waiting in line for our tour and then ushered into a small van. We were told it was around a 2-hour drive to the Mayan Ruins. Once there, we would have nearly an hour to explore before taking back to the port. Alright, so if you're a history lover like myself, you will absolutely love this excursion. The 2-hour journey to the ruins sounds like a long time, but if you have an informational guide like we did, you'll be entertained the entire time. You'll learn everything about the Mayan people, how they lived, why the ruins were built, as well as local wildlife and cultures. If you don't come out of the ride to the ruins without learning something, then I would pretty much be shocked. So maybe if history isn't quite your thing, or all the information you gained on the ride out wasn't enough, you'll also be greeted with some stunning Mexican sights along the way, such as jungles, villages, cemeteries, and markets. So, after around 2 hours, we arrived at the Mayan Ruins, officially known as Chacchoben. And if you are planning on filming or taking pictures, you'll have to pay a $5 filming fee. And while we are on the subject of fees, there are a multitude of different Chacchoben tours you can choose from, including the extreme tours, luxury tours, or a food tour. So basically, there are tours for just about everyone out there. Once we arrived, we departed the van. Our guide informed us to keep an eye out for her and her umbrella throughout the tour, then warned us not to get left behind, or we'd be stuck in Mexico forever. We headed into the jungle behind her as she pointed out various trees as well as vegetation along our short stroll towards the ruins. Within a few minutes of following an umbrella, we were confronted with the first of many ruins throughout the day, but possibly one of the most impressive. I'm not going to butcher names of these ruins, but trust me when I say this, the videos just don't do them justice. They are absolutely massive, and it still boggles my brain how folks back in the year 700 were able to engineer and construct these massive structures. And yeah, I said that right, the year 700. Pretty mind-boggling. So, our guide explained to us that most of the structures we'd be seeing on this tour were built for religious purposes. Any of the structures that had a flat top were for religious reasons, she also told us. She gave a great example of how the ruins are aligned with the stars and how the Mayan rulers would appear at the top of the ruins during certain solstices, making them appear as gods so the Mayans around them would worship them. Like I said earlier, this was all constructed around the year 700, making these ruins the oldest thing we've ever explored on this channel. A few times she had to reiterate that no, aliens did not build these structures. I'm not sure if she was joking or if she gets asked that every tour, but yeah, she wanted to point out that these old ruins were definitely not made by aliens. And to make things even crazier, well, maybe not as crazy as aliens, but this entire area you'll be seeing in this video wasn't even discovered until the 1960s, and then eventually reported to the Mexican government in 1972, and then eventually in 2002, the ruins were finally opened to the public after being excavated and restored. So after getting a brief history lesson, we eventually departed the first area. Originally, in my head, I was under the impression there was going to be one set of ruins before the tour wrapped up, but I couldn't be more wrong. We continued down another trail as our guide explained more of the local wildlife to us before arriving at yet another giant stone ruin. Even crazier to think while looking at these, that they were seemingly lost in the jungle for thousands of years without anyone knowing their existence. So the second set of ruins were unique in the way that we are actually able to climb up and down them, unlike the first set of ruins we started at. We grabbed a few photos and our guide pointed out a unique looking tree off in the distance known as a strangler tree or a strangler fig. So the strangler fig will actually climb up a host tree and, you guessed it, strangle it, and it will eventually kill it as well. So after pointing the tree out, we moved on down the trail to yet another set of ruins. We continue down the pathway and then eventually we're ushered through yet another area, this time with much smaller stone and a few sets of stairs. So our guide took us through the area and explained to us that this is where the Mayans would have lived way back in the day. Nothing much was left except for some stonework and a few steps. So after exploring the housing area for a few minutes, our guide pulled us over to yet another area. This time it was a small overhang with a chunk of rock underneath of it. She pulled us over and explained that this rock had some old ancient inscriptions on it and they can still be seen on the rock to this day. After leaving the inscription stone, we went around yet another corner and seen a large staircase with people climbing up and down it. So now it was our turn to head up the giant staircase, and little did I know what was at the top of it. We got to the giant steps and started to descend them, careful not to fall back down, with the sounds of howler monkeys off in the distance. Sam decided to hang back with the monkeys, and to my surprise, after climbing the set of stairs, there were 2 more giant ruins at the top. So, like I said earlier in the video, I'm not really sure of the names of all the ruins or if they even have individual names, but they were just as impressive as the first few that we seen. Once again, it is just crazy to think that these massive stone temples were lost in the jungle until the 1970s. After taking in the views of these massive stone fortresses, we then descended back down the giant set of stairs. And once back at the bottom, we took a few moments to watch the howler monkeys up in the trees. After reaching the bottom of the stairs, our guide let us know the tour was practically over, and right as she was saying that, 2 toucans flew right behind her. I tried to get some video of them, hopefully you can spot them here. We continued down the path, turned another bend, and we were back at the parking lot. We grabbed some Mexican Doritos and a beer for the long drive back to the port, while enjoying some Mexican scenery along the way. Alright, well, if you couldn't already tell, we all highly recommend this tour. Everything from the history lesson to our guide to the ruins and everything else in between, everything was just phenomenal. Hopefully we'll be able to check out some more Mayan ruins down the road on the channel, but if you were on the fence like we were, now you know how we feel. Definitely try to fit in a Mayan ruin tour on your next Caribbean vacation. 2 hours later, we arrived back in the port of Costa Maya. The port has a lot going on for it. Everything from gift shops to flamingos to a beautiful swimming pool and even a few dolphins. You could easily stay all day within the port area and have a blast. We opted to head back to the breakaway, soaking in those last Caribbean sun rays and enjoying our last views of that crystal clear blue water. Like seriously. Look how clear that water is. After getting back on board, fast forward a few more hours and we headed out for our last premium dinner aboard the Breakaway. We opted for an Italian restaurant known as La Cucina for a very special occasion, none other than Sally's birthday. After a pizza, pasta, and some birthday cake, we were lucky enough to be able to get out of our seats. So I think we'd all agree that the dining on the Breakaway was top notch. And make sure to wish Sally a happy birthday down in the comments. With dinner finished up, that meant sadly that our trip was just about wrapped up as well. We had one more day at sea before arriving back in New Orleans. So we headed back to the room, packed up our bags, and dreaded the flights back home, where it was in the single digits. Before you know it, we were waiting in line for our flights before ultimately arriving back home. But at least we had Zion and Bryce waiting there for us. But wait, there's more. As promised, I thought I would give you a brief rundown on our breakaway experience for any of you that might be curious about the boat, the excursions we did, or just Norwegian cruise lines in general. first off, let's start with one of the most important parts of any cruise, the food. So I do want to make a bit of a disclaimer. Sally and Sam have made me into a bit of a cruise snob over the last few years, spoiling me staying in the Haven. And I will also say I've never cruised on anything other than Norwegian, so take this as you will. So the food, I honestly thought was top notch. The premium dinners we had, we left both happy and full just about every night. La Cucina was great, as well as the Shanghai Noodle Bar, both really stuck out in my mind. So if you're curious about the other dining options that we didn't cover in these videos, the Breakaway also has a steakhouse, seafood restaurant, sushi bar, and much more. Also, the buffet might have been one of the best I've seen on any of my cruising experiences. So also, if you get a chance, make sure you check out the ramen bar and don't forget the ice cream. So the food gets a solid 8.5 out of 10 from me. On to entertainment and things to do on the boat. So there are countless things to keep you busy, including shows, water slides, swimming pools, a casino, and much more. I'm not a big show guy myself, but everyone seemed to enjoy the onboard theater. We attended 2 separate comedy shows while on board, and they were both really funny and entertaining. I would highly recommend them if you get a chance. As for the top deck, it seemed like it was lacking and dated compared to other major cruise ships. There is no giant grand feature on this boat like a go-kart track or even a miniature golf course. Instead, you have a pretty random rope course and a few water slides. So when it comes to the nightlife, you won't have to venture far to find live music in various bars throughout the ship, like a Beatles cover band or even a Fleetwood Mac cover band. If that isn't your thing, you can always press your luck in one of the many ship game shows. Overall, I thought the entertainment on the ship was great, minus the top deck, so I'd give it around a 7.5 out of 10. This next category I'm literally going to spend 10 seconds on because there is just no comparison. When it comes to our rooms, you can't really get any better than staying in the Haven. Our rooms were simply fantastic and easily a 10 out of 10. Alright, well, we're going to switch things up here and head off of the Breakaway and talk a little bit about the 2 excursions that we did. So in Belize, we chose to head out onto the Monkey River Eco Tour, which found us on a small boat heading towards the jungles of Belize. I mentioned it in the last video, but they can really cram you into these small boats. So if you're not a fan of cramped quarters or water, you're definitely not going to like this excursion, so keep that in mind. They sent us out with around 20 folks packed into a boat and then pretty much sent us right into a pretty nasty storm. The more people they fit on the boat, the more money they make, so keep that in mind as well. However, our guide was extremely knowledgeable about the area and the wildlife. After our nearly 40-minute boat ride, we pulled up to the shores of the Belizean jungle and were lucky enough to spot some howler monkeys and even a northern boa. So I will say this though, I really enjoyed this excursion, but it's definitely not for everyone out there. If you want to see some Central American wildlife in the wild, it's worth just about every second. So I give the Monkey River Eco Tour a solid 9 out of 10. And on to our second excursion that we did on the trip, one that you're probably familiar with. We are back talking about the Chacchoben Mayan Ruin Tour. And like I said earlier in the video, the drive out was highly informative and the tour of the ruin area was just simply amazing. Seeing those ancient structures tucked away deep into the jungle was even more mind-blowing. I know I probably said mind-blowing 5 other times in this video, but yeah, not only did we learn about the Mayan culture and the temples, but we learned about the wildlife, the environment, and just Mexico as a whole. It was a lot of fun and highly educational. So the Mayan Ruin Tour will also get a solid 9 out of 10 for me as well. Well, I already mentioned the rooms in the Haven, but let's talk about the Haven as a whole. So where to start? First off, if you are not familiar with the Haven, it is essentially a ship within a ship. Don't feel like going downstairs to the pool? Well, you have your own private pool just feet away from your room. Don't feel like heading out to dinner and waiting in line? Well, you can just head on down to the Haven restaurant. Lazy and don't feel like going downstairs for a drink? Well, you guessed it, you can just head on down to the Haven bar or even have it delivered right to your room. Same as breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I think I can speak for all four of us. We seem to all highly enjoy the Haven restaurant each and every day. The bar though was kind of hit or miss for us. We opted for other bars after just a few days. The pool area, as I mentioned earlier, was pretty interesting. The indoor pool area also accommodates dining, which can make for some awkward moments whether you're dining or swimming. That would have to be one of my main complaints of the Haven. The upper outside portion of the Haven also seemed a little soulless, having just a smoker's area and some seating. Overall though, the Haven was perfect for us. If you're a fan of solitude and not having many people around you, then you will love just about every second spent here. So I will give the Haven experience a 8.5 out of 10. And last but not least, we're going to throw every category into one and just focus on the Breakaway as a whole. I don't really need to delve back into everything I just spoke about, but I will say that the ship is starting to show some signs of age in some areas, but other areas like the main atrium and unique spots such as the ice bar really make this boat seem brand new and stand out in some ways. Some things I wish that were a little better would be the pool area, more activities to do outside other than shuffleboard and a rope course, and the odd dining options within the Haven. Other than those few things, there really isn't too much to write home about. So yeah, overall I give the Breakaway a solid 8.6 out of 10. Alrighty folks, and just like that, we will officially wrap up Cruise Vlog 2.0. So I hope you all enjoyed our voyage through the Caribbean together as we checked off a few more countries for the channel along the way. But we want to hear from all you. Are you a fan of the cruise vlogs? Have you been on a cruise yourself? Where do you want to see us go next? And as always, thank you all for supporting the channel and making it into what it is today. So hopefully we will be seeing you on Cruise Vlog 3.0 sooner than later. And we will be seeing you also back in Pennsylvania next week. So yeah, thanks again.